Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining in today's session. Since there's still more participants to join, we'll be starting the webinar in 5 minutes. Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, and a huge welcome to the first session of the Genesis Chain webinar series. My name is Ashwant, and I'm thrilled to be your host today as we kick off this incredible journey together. Just to highlight again, we are a free 8-week webinar series on a mission to make blockchain education accessible to everyone. Our goal is to move beyond the hype and give you practical, real world knowledge from industry leaders that you can use to advance your career and fuel your curiosity. This initiative was created for students, for professionals, and for anyone who wants to understand the transformative power of blockchain technology. We're so glad you're here to be part of it. Before we dive in, I want to give a huge thanks to our incredible sponsor, MTutor. MTutor education. MTutor has resources to help you succeed. Their amazing support is what allows us to keep the Genesis Chain series completely free, and we are so grateful. We highly encourage everyone to check out their innovative platform at mtutor.com. Now, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce our trailblazing speaker for today, Daniel Schwartz. Daniel is a renowned expert in the blockchain space and has been instrumental in pioneering real-world blockchain applications that have transformed both technology and career paths for countless individuals. We are incredibly fortunate to have him here to share his insights with us. Just a quick reminder before we begin, we'll have a dedicated 15 minutes Q&A session at the end of the presentation. So if you have any questions for Daniel, please hold on to them until then. That's everything from me for now. Get ready to dive deep into the foundations of blockchain. Without further ado, I'll hand it over to Daniel. Please take it away.
1 second. Let's get to the beginning. Okay, everybody, welcome. Good evening, good afternoon, depending where you are. Might be morning. Thank you, Ashwant, for that wonderful introduction to the series. This is the first session of the first 8 that will be in the series, and we're going to take you through blockchain and cryptocurrency and all the different aspects will be covered. The idea here is to start off this session will be blockchain basics to get everybody on the same level. Some people, this might be old hat. For many people, this might be new. Doesn't matter. The goal is get everybody a good foundation as we move through all the sessions. Ashwant has done a phenomenal job of putting together a series of speakers to cover all of these different topics. I'm happy to be the first one and to be guiding him on his journey in putting this whole program together. A little bit more about my background briefly. I didn't sell 100 million at DPIN. The DPIN Foundation it's a crypto decentralized GPU provisioning project where we will have decentralized GPU computing available around the world to connect people who need computers to the people that have them, much like Grab or Uber connects people who want rides with people who have cars. In the middle is the platform that enables all that. Actually, we're doing okay. That project, we probably have a little over 65 million in staked volume. So that's people who have bought and are holding on to the project tokens and supporting that ecosystem. My background, uh, briefly, sales, marketing, business development, fundraising, mentoring. As I've gotten a little bit older, I spend more time working with young people, and that's how we have the basis for this project. Okay, let me dive right in. We're going to talk about blockchain basics. In the beginning, some of you might have seen this, but this is an old book called The Blockchain Revolution, one of the first Bitcoin books, talking about how the technology behind Bitcoin is changing money, business, and the world. Very important thing to remember. Most people, we talk about Bitcoin, we talk about Ethereum, BNB, all these tokens, all these coins, all these things that are happening. But everybody needs to pay attention to the underlying technology, because that is the true driver and the true innovation that's driving all this change that we're seeing. This underlying technology, this cryptography, this distributed ledger technology upon which all of these different cryptocurrency coins and tokens are built. So I like this slide. Future of money is waiting for you. It's been going on a while, but I believe, and many others believe, the future's here. So that's why I say the future's here. The technology that is going to have the greatest impact on the world economy, it has arrived. It's not self-driving cars. It's not solar. It's not AI. We believe it's the blockchain, because it's the underpinning of the new economy and the new way of wealth and financial transfer. So what's crypto? Very simply, cryptocurrency is a digital currency created through mathematical engineering. So it's algorithmic. The way it's created, it's through the blockchain, it's through solving these cryptographic equations, and that's how the cryptos are created. The key features behind crypto in the original definition is designed to be open, anonymous, secure, fast, and it bypasses traditional financial structures. Very important. Effectively, the world of crypto, Bitcoin, and everything that's followed allows us to become our own banks. It allows us to transact peer to peer in a trustless way, meaning you don't need a bank in the middle. You don't need some intermediary to enable money to transfer, right? Today, in the normal world, everybody has a bank account, or a lot of people have bank accounts. If I want to pay Ashwanth, I need to know his bank account, and I could go to my banking app. I can go to the ATM machine, punch in his account number, punch in transfer, punch in how much, punch in his account details, and away it goes. But that transfer is happening through the platform delivered by the bank. With cryptography and cryptocurrency, I have a wallet, he has a wallet, he gives me his address, and I just transact directly with him, and it's all on this thing called the blockchain. So what's a blockchain? It's a public ledger which fixes, copies, records every transaction, every block of cryptocurrency in a linear path. Here's a simple way to describe it. If you have a copy of the Bible, King James, whatever the most current version of the King James Bible is, for instance, and it's this year's version, page 128, the last word on page 128 is the same in your copy and my copy if we have the same one. So we both have a copy of the ledger. As you turn the page, more and more pages come, but they're all just get added on to the first one. So you got page 1 to page 1028. That's the same thing how the blockchain works. Page 1 was way back when Bitcoin started, if we're talking the Bitcoin blockchain. And then every day more blocks get generated, more Bitcoin gets generated as part of the process. And that ledger is just like the book. You just keep adding a new page to the book. So very, very similar. What's the future hold? Well, there are 193 plus currencies out in the world: dollars, euros, pounds, rupees, Thai baht. I live in Thailand, 21 years. Which ones are the most stable? How many in the few years? What about crypto? Well, in the cryptocurrency space, there's more than 10,000 different cryptocurrencies. And the total market cap of all the crypto that's on CoinMarketCap, I'll cover that later, is over $3 trillion. So it's a lot, but it's not everything. What I like to say for people that aren't familiar so much with crypto, just think about it this way. If you live in India, you normally transact in rupees, right? You have rupee currency and you transact in rupees. Some people have dollar accounts, some people have euro accounts because you do business internationally. That's how you think of Bitcoin. That's how you can think of Ethereum. That's how you can think of USDT. It's just another currency. How you access it is a little bit different, but it's still similar. I have dollars or I have Thai baht. I can have some Bitcoin and it's worth something in dollars and it's worth something in Thai baht. It's just another currency. That's a good way to think about this because a lot of people get freaked out. Oh, what is this thing, this cryptography thing? But if you can just in your brain think about it the way I just described, it becomes a lot less daunting. So let's talk about blockchains. Remember, I said in the beginning, the real key invention is the blockchain, the underlying technologies, and there's very varying kinds of blockchains. Life Master, she used to manage a $3.5 billion investment portfolio at JP Morgan. She's gone off and has her own capital company. This is an older video, but it's a very good explanation.
A blockchain is nothing much more than a fancy kind of database. And as you know, databases have been around for a long time. You will use them every day to varying degrees of effect, and there's a lot of use of them going on behind the scenes that you don't feel in a first-hand or personal manner, but certainly generally help your lives get organized directly or indirectly in many different ways. This is a technology that enables institutions to do what they do already today using databases, but a lot quicker, a lot cheaper, with far lower error rates, with less resulting risk, and as a result, with lower capital requirements and less vulnerability to cyber attack. That's a pretty long list of positive attributes. If you or I could agree, instead of keeping our separate records, to share the same record from inception, where when executed, the point at which that transaction is readied for commission to settlement in the system of record, we are sharing one jointly agreed, signed by both of us, authorized by both of us transaction. We are eradicating that need for post-trade reconciliation and settlement process that is lengthy, time-consuming, and expensive. That, in short, is the simplest way to think about the use of a distributed ledger or a blockchain-type database.
So you can see that was 10 years ago in 2015. But I found that's a very good explanation of what this whole underpinning of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is, this distributed ledger technology, and the value in the financial system. Now let's talk about a little bit about Bitcoin, a little bit about some of the places you can go learn. Blockchain.com. It used to be blockchain.info back in the day. Good place where you can explore what's happening in the crypto world. So in other words, I can go to this website, you can go to this website, you can put in somebody's Bitcoin address, you can put in a transaction ID, which means when somebody sends some crypto to somebody else, there's something called a TX ID, a transaction ID. You can plug that in. It will go look at the Bitcoin ledger, the distributed ledger, and you can find the transaction, you can find the address, and you can see what's going on. So this is one of the explorers. You can see in here last night when I did this, Bitcoin and most of the cryptos were up. So that little heat map chart, everything's green. Some days it's red and everything can be red. The market goes down. But this is one source of information, one of the oldest sources that are out there. We talk about Bitcoin was created in 2009, the very first one. Since then, there's been many more. As I said today, there's over 10,000 that are tracked. Some are worth nothing because remember this, as we get into the future sessions, we'll have some of the speakers talk about, well, how do you actually create cryptocurrency? But with the tools that exist, you or I in 5 or 10 minutes could go create our own cryptocurrency. Whether it's going to be worth anything, whether it's going to trade well, or any of those kind of things, nobody knows. But the actual creation has gotten so simple we can do it. That's what these things called altcoins, because the original ones were Bitcoin. So, first Bitcoin purchase back in the day, back in the day, it was invented and people were mining it, people were creating them. But the very first real world transaction with Bitcoin was in 2010. Gentleman named Laszlo Hanyecz offered 10,000 Bitcoins. At the time, it was worth about 25 bucks. He'd be kicking himself right now for 2 Papa John pizzas. So this screen is from Bitcoin Talk, which is one of the original, or probably the original forum for crypto enthusiasts. And he said, I'll pay 10,000 Bitcoins for a couple of pizzas. Somebody got him 2 large Papa John pizzas, and they got 10,000 Bitcoins. 4 years after that, it was worth nine was building a thesis on encryption, so that's where he learned about Bitcoin. On a whim, he spent $27 for 5,000 Bitcoins. A few years later, they were worth $886,000, $27 to 886, not 886K, not too bad. That 5,000 Bitcoins today is about 550 million US dollars. Let's talk about some of the big movers and shakers in the world. Who has Bitcoin? Who has crypto? Bill Gates. This is an older quote, but he said, Bitcoin's better than currency. You don't have to be in the same place to physically transact. In the future, he believed that financial transactions are going to be digital, universal, and almost free. I'll talk about that in a little bit when I talk about some of these blockchains and some of these crypto. Richard Branson, back in the day, years ago, hosted the greatest minds in Bitcoin on Necker Island to discuss the future of blockchain. Again, this is more than 10 years ago he did that. Mark Andreessen, the one who invented Netscape, now has Andreessen Horowitz VC company, A16Z. So he said that blockchain is going to impact the world more than the internet. That's a pretty tall order considering he invented Netscape, the first browser. As of today, or yesterday, I double checked, he personally and his funds have invested 7.6 billion US dollars in cryptocurrencies and cryptocurrency projects. So he's significantly invested. Who else? Elon Musk. He's gone off and on crypto. He was going to take Dogecoin, to buy Teslas, and he bought a whole bunch and held it in treasury, but he was an avid promoter. SpaceX had 25,000 Bitcoin and then reduced its position to 8,000 by June of that year. At the moment, at least as of yesterday, Tesla has about 11,500 Bitcoin, worth a little bit over $1.24 billion. So that's just outside the top 10 publicly traded companies having Bitcoin in their treasury. Michael Saylor, most people probably have heard of him. He used to have a company called MicroStrategy. And then a number of years ago, he decided to make his company effectively a proxy for Bitcoin. That's what he decided to do. Meaning, he, instead of just doing his business intelligence, mobile software, cloud-based services, he started buying Bitcoin in the company and borrowing money, issuing bonds to continue to buy Bitcoin. So basically, his company stock and his company is a proxy for Bitcoin. And they've spent many billions of dollars to purchase over 600,000 Bitcoins. That's one of the largest institutional holders of Bitcoin in the world. This is an older video of Bill Gates again, talking about the benefits of cryptocurrency and talking about banking the unbanked. There are more than 3 billion people in the world that do not have a bank account. If you don't have a bank account, you are kind of shut out from the ability to create wealth because you have nowhere to put money and you have nowhere to grow it.
We know the Gates Foundation for its work on infectious diseases, child health, nutrition, agriculture, education, the list goes on. Why does Bill Gates care about finance?
Well, it's all about helping the poorest. And one thing they don't have access to is bank accounts. The fee structure, if you have small amounts of money, is just too high. And we got involved in some traditional microlending, but just didn't see how that could scale up and get inexpensive enough. So now we're involved in trying to make sure we get a very efficient digital payment structure set up for all the poorest in the world to get financial products that work for them.
What are you doing?
The idea is that typically through the cell phone, you should be able to send money to your relatives. You should be able to track the money that's coming in, set aside money to buy seeds the next year. And there are countries where this is beginning to take off. Kenya, Bangladesh, even Somalia, that maybe the last country you'd suspect up in Somaliland, almost half of the GDP is done digitally.
I don't need to tell you that the poor have been unbanked for as long as there have been banks. Why is this time different?
Well, it's really the digital revolution. The poorest have bought cows, stored gold, put currency under their mattress, but they are getting cell phones, and the cell phone capability of identifying who's using the cell phone, letting you look at your spending patterns, that's going to be common sense. People are going to have help and lots of innovative products competing on top of this digital currency platform.
Yeah, one of the things I'll say, you have wallets that you can hold crypto yourself, which is effectively the private keys, which enables you to sign a transaction to be able to shift ownership of some crypto on the blockchain. You can have your little bank in your phone. I can have Bitcoin, I can have Ethereum, I can have any number of cryptocurrencies stored in an app on my phone. I don't need a fancy iPhone. I can have a low cost Android phone. The technology has gotten so good, for sub $100 you can get a perfectly adequate, decent sized screen mobile phone that you can do everything. And as crypto has grown up, the services that are out there and available to you to enable you to transfer money, that's the most basic, to hold and transfer. But to enable you to have earning, to get a yield, to make interest, basically, exists in the crypto space in parallel with the banking system. So it enables everybody, even the poorest of the poor, who can get a phone, because banks in the world are closing branches because they cost lots of money to operate. And as you get out in rural areas, be it in rural India, rural Thailand, rural Myanmar, Cambodia, Laos, Indonesia, Africa, there's no way for the banks to actually get out there. So crypto is definitely the solution. Now let's talk a little bit about where you can find information on cryptocurrencies, what they're worth, what's out there. I remember back in the day when this site coinmarketcap.com first started, it hardly had anything. It just had the cryptos, it had the trending, but now you see it's quite busy. If you look at the site here, you have cryptocurrencies, you can have dashboards, DEXs, decentralized exchange scans. You can look at the centralized exchanges, communities, products. You can track your portfolio using this website. Anytime you buy something, you have the ability to track it, and you can keep track of what you own and what it's worth as it changes in real time. People do that, and people can have their portfolios watched by others. So if you want to be a trader, other people can subscribe to your portfolio. You can see this one is showing all the current cryptocurrencies in order by market cap. So this was last night. Bitcoin was at 110,000 US. In the last hour from the time I did it, it was up a little bit. $2.2 trillion market cap. The way market cap is calculated here, it's just circulating supply times price. And it goes down to, number 5,000 is however many ones, however many coins or tokens, times whatever the price is, tells you the market cap. Just like stock market cap. How much volume was traded in 24 hours? Almost 65 billion. But you can see the top 7: Bitcoin, Ethereum. Tether is US dollar. Tether, that's a company out of Hong Kong. Tether backs this crypto one for one with US dollar reserve equivalents. Some of it's bonds, some of it's stock, some of it's real estate. But they say for every one of these 183 billion that have been issued, there is 183 billion in dollars to back them up. BNB is Binance, is the Binance token from the Binance exchange. XRP, Ripple, Solana number 6, USDC, US dollar. That's a US dollar coin from a different supplier. Again, that is also what's called a stable coin. And the idea is it's worth $1. The reason to have these USDT, USDC, if I have Bitcoin and I'm trading some Bitcoin, so I want to take some profits. The easiest thing is I sell it for USDT, therefore I'm still staying in crypto. If I sell it for dollars, right? If I'm in the US and I have a dollar-based bank connection and they trade against dollars, I am going in and out of the fiat dollar system against the crypto, whereas it's much easier, quicker to do it within crypto to crypto. That's why these Tether USDT was created, because in a lot of places, it's not easy to go in and out of the banking system, but you can still trade purely in the crypto space. I also then searched, clicked on exchanges, spot exchanges. These are centralized exchanges, kind of like the online stock trading companies like E-Trade in the US. You get an account, you load your account with money, connect your bank account, debit card, credit card. You put money in your account, and then you are able to trade what's on the platform. So Binance is the biggest in the last 24 hours, which was yesterday. $23 billion was traded on Binance. A lot of people, 2,222 markets. That means 2,222 different trading pairs, 602 coins. And it also supports 89 different kinds of fiat currency. So if you're in Thailand, you can connect your Thai bot bank account. If you're in America, USDT. If they were allowing it in India, you can connect INR if possible, Euro, and the like. Second largest by trading volume yesterday was Bybit at 4 billion. So you can see Binance dominates the market. Here's some of the top cryptos. Bitcoin showing yesterday's performance. $110,000 per Bitcoin. It was up 2% in 24 hours. You could see over the course of the day, it was down a bit, then up a bit when it closed. You can scroll down. You can see the 1 week. You can look at a month, a year, all time. You got news. You can check the markets for it, all kinds of things. So everything about Bitcoin's on this page. Next, Ethereum's number 2, $3,864. Crypto's been down a little bit lately. It hit all-time highs and then dropped back. That happens. For everybody on this webinar, everybody's participating in the GenesisChain series. Just remember, cryptocurrency is still volatile. Even though it's been around since 2009, Bitcoin was first around 16 years ago. It's still relatively early days, and it still is somewhat speculative, even though there's so much institutional interest. There's the big players, BlackRock, the biggest wealth manager in the world with many trillions under management. It's still relatively small in comparison to the big world of finance. So always, always, always only use a portion of your wealth and put it in crypto, not all of it, unless you're young and it's not going to kill you with whatever you're putting in it, that you're willing to have a very high risk tolerance, because it can go up a real lot and there are times when it crashes down a real lot also. Tether's number 3, USDT. Again, it's typically worth $1. It fluctuates a little bit. It can get a little over $1. It can get a little less than $1. Again, same information. You can check everything about Tether. They also are tokenizing assets, tokenizing stocks. So there are digital representations of gold here. So there's a gold token. This is a real world asset, what's called a real world asset, $4,000 and $27 billion of market cap is huge. Actually, no, that's 27 trillion. That's the total value of what's been trading is 2.9 billion in the tokenized version. Nvidia Corp's worth $5 trillion. So if you had an Nvidia Corp token to match every share, that's the value there. So you see the traditional financial system is also moving onto the blockchain. Another one, some of you might have remembered, these were all the rage 2021. These things called non-fungible tokens, digital representations of art, unique. They're still around. They still trade. One of the early ones, number 4 on this list, Bored Ape Yacht Club. They're pretty cool. The volume last 24 hours was 162 Ethereum. So that's not that much. You know, that's only what, $5, $6, $8 million. These were all the rage a number of years ago, but still there's a market for them and there's a value. We'll again talk about what these things are in the future and why they're important and why they're valuable. Now, let's talk about what are some of the advantages of cryptocurrency over traditional money. Let's look at that. So why would I use crypto? If I look at this word chart, you have exchanges, transactions, blockchain, cryptocurrency, finance. All of those things are in the crypto world. So why would I want to use crypto? One, it's decentralized. I can have some, you can have some. We can transfer value between us without the involvement of a third party. The reason why the cryptography and the ledger, this public blockchain, enables nobody to cheat. That's what takes care of making it trustless. That's the whole point. So I feel comfortable sending you some, and I know it's going to get there. Second, relatively easy to use. Once you get a wallet set up, there's a few more steps than just using your bank, but once you learn, it's not very difficult. Relative anonymity. Back in the day, people would say Bitcoin's anonymous, but it really isn't. You can read in the newspapers how the bad guys who stole Bitcoin or use Bitcoin for illicit purposes get caught. The reason why I say this, unless you change addresses every transaction, I have an address that I've had for 10 years. If I give Ashwant that address because he owes me, I'm his landlord, and he wants to pay me $100 for his monthly rent. I only charge him $100 for his rent. If I give him that address and he sends me $100 worth of Bitcoin, at that moment in time, he knows that address is tied to Dan Schwartz. And he could go look up on the Block Explorer on that very first blockchain.com. You could go check and see all the history of that address going back to day one. Total Bitcoin in, total Bitcoin out, total Bitcoin sitting there now. And that applies to all the other addresses. Doesn't matter if it's Bitcoin or Ethereum or Binance. They all have block explorers. They all work similarly in terms of how the ledger technology works, and they all can be tracked. But it's transparent. I had this happen once. Somebody was saying, "Hey, I don't know that I got my tokens that you guys were supposed to send me in a company I was working with." And I go, "Hold on, give me your address." I go to the Block Explorer. I put his address in. I take a screenshot, has the last 5 transactions, including the one where we sent him the crypto he was expecting. He goes, "Whoa, how did you do that? How do you know all that? Isn't that supposed to be private?" I go, "No, it's all supposed to be public." The only thing that's not public is that that's you, because it's just an address. And unless you tell somebody, nobody's going to know. Low fees, very low fees, usually. There are times when the Bitcoin transaction fees go way up because super high traffic on the network, and then people want to pay more to make their transactions go in front of others. But for instance, I like to use Binance Chain, BNB. If somebody pays me for some work and they want to send me $1,000, they can send me 1,000 USDT built on top of Binance's network, the Binance chain, just like there's a Bitcoin, there's a Binance blockchain, and it costs a penny. If I go from my wallet that's on my phone and I want to send somebody $20, $50, it costs me a penny, sometimes free. So very low fees compared to if I want to send $150 through the banking system using Swift, right? Want to send a wire transfer to America. It's the banks are going to charge me $40 or $50 to send whatever I send. If I send 100, 1,000, 5,000, I'm going to pay a $40 fee. That's a lot compared to 1 penny. Now, let's talk about everybody should get involved. The reason you're attending this webinar series is to learn something, but tread carefully. You can get scammed. There's all kinds of things out there, people who want to separate you from your money. So be careful. I like this danger, danger, danger. Stay away from the scams. If you're not familiar, usually if it's too good to be true, it is too good to be true. If you're just getting started, get all the ones in the top 100 coins or tokens just to get familiar. Have some things like Bitcoin, Ethereum, BNB for Binance, ADA's Cardano. The guy who invented Cardano is one of the founders of Ethereum. POL is Polygon, another low cost blockchain that people can build their tokens on top of. Again, very low fees for creation and transacting. So you'll read about it. One of the other things when you think about it, very important, how do you know what's going to be valuable? Well, you don't know for 100% what's going to be valuable, but one thing for sure, if for instance, I want to use Ethereum or Binance Chain, BNB or Ethereum, as the underlying mechanism for sending my token. So USDT is on Ethereum, there's USDT on Binance. Anytime I want to send some or receive some, I have to spend a little of the underlying blockchain's coin. So to send something on Ethereum on ERC20, that's just the standard, it costs a little bit of Ethereum, which means all these transactions, all these tokens, all these smart contracts, software running on top of Ethereum every day, every minute of every day, Ethereum is being used and spent by all those players in the market, which means Ethereum always has a use, Ethereum always has a value. Similarly with BNB, Cardano, similarly, Polygon. So those have their own what's called layer ones, which means people build on top of them. So there's always going to be a need for them. So this is a good place to begin. Used to be way back in the beginning when I did this presentation 8-10 years ago, it was get some Bitcoin, because that used to be the only on-ramp into the world of crypto. Now you have many other choices. So final points I want to make before we do some question and answer, and I think we're right on time. Lots of ways to participate in the world of cryptocurrencies. This is talking about how you can make money. We're going to cover all the different aspects of the crypto space of cryptocurrency and blockchain. Now, if you start with some of your still coins you can mine, Bitcoin is mined. There's cloud mining. These things called airdrops, where you participate in a project, you do some tasks, you promote them on X and in Discord or on Telegram, and the project for doing that will send you some free tokens. These things called NFTs, non-fungible tokens, will cover those, but they're digital representations of physical things typically. There are affiliate programs out there, payment systems. You can play games and earn. You can invest in launches of new projects. You can farm. It's called yield farming. What that means is in this decentralized space, you buy project tokens and you store them and you receive yield. Effectively, you're getting paid interest. You can get paid dividends. You can lend. There's lending platforms. You can have things called master nodes, because some of these technologies you need to have a certain amount of the crypto to help run their network. That's how they work. Staking, which is effectively locking up your tokens. No different. I make a deposit in the bank, right? I take $1,000 equivalent in rupees, INR. I go put it in a fixed deposit for 6 months, and the bank's going to pay me 3% a year interest. Same thing exists in the crypto space. Hodling, which used to be holding, somebody spelled it wrong, so it stuck around. That just means buy it and forget it. If you bought Bitcoin when it was a dime, 50 cents, or $1, you believed in it. You just said, I know eventually this is going to be worth something. And you held on to a bunch, since 2009 in the early days, or 2010 or 2012, you would have been handsomely rewarded just for holding. And then the last way you can make money in the cryptocurrency space by actively trading. We're not going to cover trading through this series, but we're going to cover all of these different elements so you can get a full appreciation how the world of cryptocurrencies work. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to our host, and thank you all for attending, and we'll be around to answer some questions. So over to you, Ashwant. You can ask Ashwant the hard questions. And if you don't want to talk, you can type in the chat. Well, no, the chat's off. Sorry. You can talk. Sure. If there's no questions, are there any questions on the YouTube live stream? Give it a check. Excellent. So again, I just want to say thank you for being here at this kickoff of the GenesisChain series. Ashwant has put together a fantastic set of speakers to cover all these various topics. I'll get to come on at the very end and talk about a topic that's very near and dear to my heart, which is how to protect what you have. I like to jokingly also call it about inheritance planning and how to make sure your heirs don't get your crypto until the last possible moment when they're supposed to. But we're going to cover everything from, like I said, my intro to all the various aspects. We are here every Saturday, 7 p.m. IST, 8:30 p.m. in Thailand, 9:30 in Singapore, 1:30 in the UK, because they've now switched off of daylight savings time. So this is going to be an exciting series. That 7 more weeks to go. And I think, Ashwant, you can just introduce who's next week's speaker and what they're going to cover, and then we could say goodnight to everybody after you're done.